Welcome to the Bariatric Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kristen Lloyd, mindset mentor, somatic coach, and transformational guide for those on the path to true healing. Whether you've had weight loss surgery or on GLP-1s or simply seeking a new way forward with food and your body, this space is for you. This podcast is a mission to change the narrative, unlearning the patterns that no longer serve you, moving beyond quick fixes into deep, embodied healing, lasting mindset shifts, and true self-leadership. We are healing from the roots, rewiring the mind, regulating the body, and returning home to ourselves. We are here for growth rooted in honesty and self-trust because that, my friends, is the foundation of healing. So grab your cup of joe or your H2O and let's go. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Bariatric Mindset Success Podcast. This is your host, Dr. Kristen Lloyd. I am really excited for our guest today, Geof Shuford of Coaching for Bariatric Success. Geof is a personal trainer, certified mindset coach, and author with over 14 years of experience in the fitness industry, 12 of those specifically dedicated to helping weight loss surgery patients. He is the author of Now What to Expect in Your First Year of Bariatric Surgery, and has become known for his integrative philosophy, exercise as a meditative mind-body practice that supports both physical strength and mental clarity. His approach was shaped by his own experience living with ADHD and often feeling misunderstood. Geof discovered that movement wasn't just about muscle or fat loss. It was a way to calm his mind, release stress, and reconnect with himself. When he began sharing this perspective with clients, they also found that exercise could become play, flow, and even meditation rather than a chore to dread. Blending his expertise in fitness and mindset coaching, Geof brings humor, sarcasm, and fun into every session. His passion lies in helping bariatric patients build strength, mobility, and self-trust while reshaping their relationship with their bodies. For his clients, exercise is no longer punishment or resistance. It becomes an empowering experience of growth, connection, and sustainable transformation. I'm so excited to welcome you here today. Welcome, Geof.
Thank you, Kristen. I appreciate that introduction. It was amazing.
Well, I know we're going to have fun today because we always have some really great conversations. And I don't know, our audience may get a different side of me today because you always bring out my humor. You have such a great sense of humor. And I'm so glad that is reflected in your bio too, because I'm sure your clients have a fabulous time when they get to work with you. Am I right?
Well, I would hope so. Yes. I can be very goofy with my clients sometimes. I sometimes have to apologize. More than a few times, I think people have said the workout is less painful than the dad jokes you've been telling for the past 45 minutes. So, yeah.
I would love for the audience to get to know you a little better. So I know we shared that bio, but can you share a little bit more about your own journey and your own journey with fitness? It may not have been a bariatric journey, but hey, I want to know your journey and what led you to coaching bariatric patients specifically, and a little bit more about you.
Yeah, thank you. I came from a family that was, most personal trainers, they have some kind of background, at least the personal trainers I know, that's in exercise or their family is athletic or all those things. And I came from a family that was absolutely the opposite of all of that. My family was really good at drinking alcohol, sitting on the couch and watching television. And I played right into that for most of my life. And it wasn't until, and it's even in the bio, it wasn't until I started going through a really difficult part of my life, maybe about 14 years ago or a little bit more, when I noticed that exercise became something that I loved doing. So I was going through a pretty nasty divorce. And I spent a lot of my time trying to not be in the house because it was just not an enjoyable place to be. And I found myself in the gym. I think a lot of people, it's almost stereotypical, right, to go to the gym right after you started getting divorced. And I fell right into that stereotype. But I noticed for me that it was a stress reliever to wear myself out like that. And I found that it was more than just exercise. It was a stress reliever. It was a way to clear my mind. It was a way to think. It was a way to be in the moment without having all the stress of the life that I was living at the time. And it sort of drove me into this profession. I moved, this was in North Carolina. I moved out to Colorado soon after and got my certification in personal training and started working in personal training just in a general sense. But along the way, I came across a friend of mine who had a friend, so a friend of a friend who was a registered dietitian with a bariatric center. And we started talking, and she made this comment to me, something along the lines of, most people that go through bariatric surgery fail after about 18 months. And her reason for failure was gain a lot of weight back, gain of like 30% of their weight back. And part of that reason is they don't have a lot of support. And it hit me. I was like, well, I would love to be able to know more about that. I never went through the surgery. So this is something I always tell people up front. It's like the surgery was not something that I ever went through, but I wanted to be able to support the people that had gone through that tool. So this RD turned out to be one of my biggest mentors in terms of bariatrics. She let me come to all the different support groups. She let me come to all the different introductions, the aftercare work that she did. And I did that for 2 years, and I learned a ton of information about bariatric surgery, started working with clients with it, and started learning more and more. And I started noticing how this tool really affected people in a positive way. I was starting to see that they were coming up to me and saying things like, oh my God, I just got out of the bathtub and it's the first time I've ever been in a bathtub in like 30 years. Or these pair of pants that never fit all of a sudden fit. Or whatever the thing was. And to me, that was very exciting to see. You could see these people's change, and it was a positive change. They were excited by everything that was happening. And I wanted to be maybe 1% of that help for them. They're doing 99% of the work. I wanted to be 1%. So it got me into it, and it got me motivated to stay into it. And it's those things that keeps me going with that, with what I do. So that's, in a nutshell, that's kind of that's how I've landed. And it's been 14 years or 12 years of working with bariatric surgery clients. And I absolutely love doing it. And every time I start getting a little bit, whatever, I have one of my clients will say something to me along those lines, like one of those
changing lives, Geof.
Right. Yeah. And it's funny. It's rarely ever, I'm so excited that I lost weight. That comes up a lot. But I think where people's excitement comes in are things like, I got to pick up a 50-pound bag of dog food and I didn't have to ask my husband to do it. And it was the most liberating thing ever. That literally was a conversation I had with my client last year. And it made me super excited to stay with it. So there's your long-winded.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. You reminded me of two things, actually. One of which was before surgery. I remember a specific occasion. I was in my parents' house and I went to use the bathtub, and I'm laughing now, but I was horrified then. I could not get out. I had to have my husband and my sister help me out. And I don't think anybody remembers that. I can laugh now because my surgery was in 2013. So it's 12 years. I was horrified. Yes, because I was naked in the bathtub. And I was like, I can't get out. Like, no, I really can't. And it was so embarrassing. And I don't even remember my state of mind. I just remember when you said bathtub, I was like, yes. And it's mortifying. It's mortifying to know, okay, I'm going to try to get in. I want to take a bath, not take a shower, and not having the thought I may not be able to get out. And that was obviously one of the reasons, not specifically that reason. I may have even been on the trajectory to have surgery at that point. I don't even remember, but yeah, that's huge. And then the other thing you said is, okay, some people have a fitness story or why they got into fitness. And I will have some people ask me like, why did you go into therapy? Or imagine it's because you're easy to talk to. No, my family's fucked up. I wanted to know how to help people. So because sometimes many of us come from a family that's like so messed up. I think we all have like, what is normal, right? But
right. Yeah.
I remember there was a lot of diet culture. I didn't come from a family that there was healthy eating. My dad sold Herbalife and also made beer, homemade beer, like at the same time, was selling Herbalife, making beer. Everybody was having Alba 77 shakes. Do you remember that?
I do.
My grandmother was constantly on a diet, and then they had 5 o'clock toddies. It was a mess. Like, it was a mess. If you can imagine, like, and this is where you learned about food. Yes. Like my dad, chicken wings and homemade pizza, beer, tacos, Philly cheesesteaks. That was what I grew up on. So when you think like, how did you get into this, Kristen? It's like, well, so it's not that far off. Sometimes it's, oh, I had this epiphany or this or that. I wanted to know what made people tick. I wanted to know what made people think. But sometimes it's the trajectories in life. It's like, I want to not be so crazy because my family's, how do I not be crazy?
Teach yourself first.
Yeah, teach yourself first. It's like, it's like, help me help you. Like, help me help myself. So,
yeah. And that's actually that's what it was for me. I didn't know about exercise. There was, again, my dad I think the only thing he'd ever run from would be that hesitation tells me that I don't think he would have run for anything. He was not an exercise guy. Near as my mom. That was that generation. So I had to learn it all on my own. And it was just one of those things. I tapped into it and I didn't like it. Let's throw it out there right at the beginning. I'm not going to be one of these people that believes that I went into it and the first thing I had the heavens open up and the angels sing and I was a fitness person. I absolutely didn't like it. And the reason I stuck with it is because my home life was that much worse off that I decided I was just going to do this. And so in a way I can relate to a lot of my clients that look at me and go, well, I hate exercise. I'm like, I get it. I was there too. I know exactly what it was like. And just stick with it. I promise you'll go from I don't want to do this to I love doing this. And they do.
Yeah, I remember several years ago when I had my therapy office, and this has a point. I had a client come in. Now, let me back up. When I was in high school, I was a swimmer. Okay. I also connected swimming with hunger signals long time ago. And then in this office, I remember I didn't do swimming at this time. I was maybe doing some cardio, some strength training. We're talking like 2018-ish, 2019. And she had weight loss surgery and started working with me. And she was like, I love swimming and I'm swimming and I'm doing this. And I'm like, you like swimming? You really like that? But like, that's working for you? Because the only thing I could associate with was after swim practice in high school, because I hadn't swam in a long time, because I didn't feel comfortable in a bathing suit for a very long time, was how much hungrier I was after swimming. So she's telling me this, and I'm only giving her positive feedback, just validating her experience. Mm-hmm. But in my head, I'm thinking, that's nuts. Like, how is that not increasing your hunger? So I am suspending my beliefs, just listening and validating her experience. Like, that's great. I'm so glad you're enjoying it. Fast forward to a couple of years later, I think it was 2022, probably 2022, 2023. My son's on the swim team. I start going to swim. I start loving it. Now he's done with the swim team. It does not negatively impact my hunger signals. It's such a meditative, like no phone, if I'm on any of the machines, the bikes, the treadmills, any of those things, I'm on my phone because I'm bored. And right. I like the strength training, not even boot camp style, but the very fast paced, almost like the HIIT trainings, because they help my ADHD. And then swimming I have to be in the zone for myself. No phones, obviously, because it would get wet. And I think that helps me to de-stress. And one of the things I've learned that I want to share is before you negate or shut down somebody else's experience, try to go experience it for yourself. Because what I have found in my experience is whenever I'm typically like really have a strong, like I'm against something, it usually crosses my path again and then smacks me in the face. Like, here you go, Kristen, here you go.
Right.
And so that was my experience. And here I am, like, and I told you before this call, like, I can't wait to go swimming. Like, I love that. And I do think that each individual has to find their own path to fitness, and it's got to work for their body and what works for them and exploration and all of that. So I'm curious, because not that these are myths or anything, but and I am curious because there are people who have camps, right? They're like, oh, you got to do CrossFit, or you got to do, you got to walk 5 miles a day, or da-da-da. What's the biggest myth that you'd love to bust, or what is it that misnomer or something that you'd like to bust when it comes to bariatric patients and strength training and working out in general?
Yeah, I think that's, well, there's if there's one thing in my industry that there are plenty of, are myths and misnomers and half-truths and complete lies.
We could be here all day.
We could be here all day, and I could be eye-rolling for hours. But, to me, I think when it comes to the one that popped in my head right off the bat is, there's the old school one. I'm not sure if this is much of a myth anymore. I think younger generations don't think of this, especially because a lot of my clients are female, is this idea of strength training and bulkiness. It's there, but I think it's a little less. But that's a big myth that I've had to put to rest a few hundred times in the past, is because it's this idea.
You have signs now in your gym, like you have signs so that when they ask, you're like, look at the sign. Like,
right. That one's number 5. Yeah. Your answer is number 5 over there. Number 2 is the answer to that question right there. Yeah. For me, that one's a myth that's been around way too long in terms of bulkiness. And the one I always tell people, it's like, well, if you're in my female clients, it's like, if you really, the way to get bulky is to start injecting testosterone. And I'm sure most people don't want to be injecting extra testosterone into their lives.
Yeah, no.
So that one's a big one in terms of you won't get bulky. I promise you will not get bulky with strength training. That's just not going to happen. You will get strong, but you won't get bulky. Even people that say, well, I've got the build for it. I'm like, no, you won't. You have to dedicate a lot of time and money and pharmacological injections to get bulky that way. So that's one of them. I think the other one is that exercise is miserable. You just brought it up with swimming.
Yeah.
And that one's that one is self-fulfilling prophecy, though. It's not as much of a lie or something that's in the industry. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy of, yeah, it is miserable if you're not doing it right, or if you're trying to be someone else. If you're someone who has a friend who loves to do a certain type of exercise, and so you go do that with them and you absolutely hate it, you're going to hate exercise. So for me, it's finding, for you, it was swimming. And as you was moving really fast, it was you found your exercise and what you love to do. And I think when it comes to bariatric surgery patients, I have a statement that I always tell people that have been out for about a year, which is you need to go on first dates with exercise. And what I'm getting at with this is,
I have a title for your next book.
What's that?
50 First Dates.
50 First Dates. There you go. I love it. I love it.
You know how there's that movie, 50 First Dates? Uh-huh. Your next book is going to be 50 First Dates with Exercise. I called it. Everybody, I called it.
I love it. I already have an ideas for what I want to do with it. So as soon as this podcast is over with. No, but so this happened to me 6 or 7 years into me training bariatric surgery patients, is I had this lady who was exercising because she knew she had to. She was in the had to stage. She wasn't into the want to stage.
Yeah.
And as we're going through this, I've been working with her for about 9 months or so and noticing that she was improving significantly. Her strength was getting better. She was becoming more aware of her body. She was starting to get out of the had to moments a little bit.
Yep.
And I told her, you need to find an activity that you love, because you're at that point. You're strong. You've lost a significant amount of weight. All the joint pain has gone away, all those things. And she told me a couple weeks later that she had some friends invite her to do indoor rock climbing. And so she went and she did it. I told her, you have everything about you. You can go do this, and you may hate it, but you need to go do it. Turned out she absolutely loved it, to the point of she came back her eyes were wide open. She had this glow about her. It's like her first date and she found her love. And it changed her world because she found her love. She hated yoga before. She started doing yoga because it helped her indoor rock climbing. She started working with me in different ways to help her indoor rock climbing. She started eating differently. She started becoming that rock climbing person, right? Her persona started going around her activity.
Absolutely.
And for me, it was this idea is like people hate exercise is the idea is you haven't found your love yet. And it's out there. It could be anything. But to me, I think that's a big aspect of people not sticking with workouts because they don't have a love. I always use this example too, is you don't have people saying that are runners that say, well, I'm going to go exercise for 5 miles. They're going to go run for 5 miles because that's their activity is running. It's not exercising. That's just what they do in order to enjoy their body moving. Or someone who's going to go for a hike, they're going to go for a hike. They're not going for an exercise with a backpack on their back. There's rucking, so it's just...
You're going to go biking, right? You're going to
Right. Yeah, you're going to go biking. So you're going to do the activity. You're not going to exercise. And to me, I'm going to go down this path. So when you start associating... When you start becoming aware of yourself and your body and who you are, you start becoming aware of how the exercise has changed your brain and changed your body. And when you can associate that awareness with the activity, like for me, it was associating going to the gym with becoming less stressed around a time of my life that was very stressful. I started noticing I wanted to do it more. It had less to do with the scale. It had less to do with what I look like in the mirror. It had more to do with this idea mentally of, I like this. I'm connecting activity with mental health. And that's kind of where I'm saying you have to find your love, is when you start connecting the activity with how it makes you feel. And then when you put those two together, you don't want to ever break up with your activity. You want to just become more involved with it. And it makes the rest of your existence change a little bit, because now all of a sudden, like this client of mine who's an indoor rock climber, I think she's now an outdoor rock climber too, is the fact that her whole world changed because of this. And so to me, you just haven't found your love.
So what's really, and I agree, I totally agree with that. One of the things that I see in my clients, I don't know if you see this in yours, and I have even changed using the word exercise to movement because it can be so true. Mm-hmm. I'm Gen X. Many of those of us had to deal with the President's Physical Fitness Challenge. And,
I hated that thing.
Okay. So I found that I was one of very few people who hated it, and I was not a runner. I was also the tallest in my class. So I didn't know what to do with all of my parts. And I was typically picked one of the last. I wasn't the, what we may call the chunkiest girl in my class, yet I wasn't, I don't know what you'd call it. Like fitness wasn't my thing. I was never really that large as a teen, but when we're going by cosmopolitan or whatever beauty standards, I wasn't real thin. I definitely wasn't. And puberty is when I had put on some weight. Like I could barely do the 50 sit-ups, right? So they had the 50-yard dash, the 50 sit-ups and this and that. I didn't have the stamina, the endurance for that. And I never knew why. I'm still not a runner. My knees aren't great. Obviously, I do other things, but I feel that pain that people have that could even be from childhood. I work with a lot of women who, and I'm sure you share this too, but I'm going to say this so that they can also identify themselves, like put on diet pills at 5, started Weight Watchers at 7, or some variation of that. We're also on diet shakes at, 8 or 9 years old. So this is prepubescent, right? So this is pre-puberty. And then some women gained in puberty, some didn't gain until after their first child, some gained as a result of, multiple miscarriages and fertility issues and on and on and on. Like how and where they've gained weight varies. Yet I work with a lot of people who have a lot of specific weight trauma in childhood. It could also have been, yes, we've talked about this, other types of trauma, whether it's, emotional, physical, sexual trauma. And then exercise, when we think of our bodies, is also, it can feel like it's performative or that it's a punishment, right? It's a punishment for what you ate. I know that's not true. You know that's not true. But I think for those of us who have lived through the physical fitness challenge, it was very stigmatizing, demoralizing. If you were on the lower end or you didn't make it. I didn't make it on any of those lists. Like, I remember the folks who made it on the top of the list. Like, I could say their names. I don't think they're listening to this podcast, but I remember who they were. Mm-hmm. And I think that stays with you, because then it turns into an identity of, I'm not good at that. Or I don't know if anybody else experienced this, but I'm gonna put it out there. We had to wear these obnoxiously short shorts. Now, I went to a Catholic school. Okay, so this was not, but these were obnoxiously short shorts, and my little chubby legs, they would ride up, and then my legs would rub together. I know I'm getting graphic, and it was uncomfortable. It wasn't just, oh, we're sweating, but it was, we're uncomfortable. Now I have chafing, and then I'm the problem. My body's the problem. There are multiple layers of that. And so I think adding to that, I think it makes sense why people are also not wanting to exercise or work out or move their bodies, or there's a stigma of gyms. Like, I've worked with a couple people recently that have said, I'm terrified to go to the gym. And I've asked why, because people are there. I know that sounds, I'm like, yes, there are people there. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's a self-judgment of what will other people say or what will other people think. And am I going to be judged for my body in this place? Or am I going to be standing next to someone? This is a whole other thing, but I will sometimes joke with my trainer when I do have a gym that I go to, and I'll see a woman who you can just tell she's like got extensions, her makeup's on, she's in tight pants, a bra top. She does not look like she's coming to the gym. She looks like she's dating. Do you know what I mean? Like, she's coming to the gym. So then I think that there are other women that are like, so I have to go in this gym and stand next to this chick on the treadmill? Like, comfortable. And then, so I wanted to share that perspective, get your insight. But then I had one other thing, because this has come up a couple times, is what do you do if there's somebody who says, I don't like to sweat? Which obviously, I know what I would say. It helps release toxins. It's going to do so many positive things for your body. But I would imagine that a trainer would hear that more than someone. I ask people all the time, are you moving your body? And that's what I'll say. Movement is for mental health. There's so many positive reinforcements for moving your body. It's not a punishment. It's to help your strength and mobility and all of those things. But I'm curious from your perspective, if you've heard that, I don't like to sweat, which, by the way, my husband and I work out together now, and he does not sweat. I am drenched by the end of the workout. I'm drenched. He does not sweat. And he's like, what? Like, that was hard. And he has different weights. He's lifting different than me. So we have a program that our trainer goes through with us. So we're not lifting the same, obviously, but I'm still drenched in sweat, and he's barely got a bead on his forehead. And that's just, we could walk out. It could be 100 degrees outside. He has one bead on his forehead, and I'm drenched, I'm frizzy, and my mascara's run. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. So that's a whole other factor. Like, we all sweat different. But what do you do if somebody, I don't want to sweat, and then that whole finding your love and all. Right. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think, you brought up you're a really good therapist, because you uncovered a trauma that I forgot I even had. Ooh, so key with that one, the presidential fitness test. Holy crap. So yeah, I'm Gen X as well. And I remember I was the fat kid in middle school, right? I was the guy that everybody made fun of. I was that person. That was just who I was. So the presidential fitness test was my hell. I hated it. And we kept I was always at the bottom. I was always in the 1%. That's just what it was. It's exactly what you were saying.
I feel that in my bones. Like,
yes, it was. And I guess maybe this is part of me subconsciously being who I am today and work, because I understand it, maybe not all my life, but there was a part, especially middle school. Kids are just mean in middle school. I think they're the meanest humans on the planet, and they scare me. But they so in that era of being the fat kid and being made fun of and always having the athletes, the kids that were always doing that. So that was President, and there was a story in there that kind of that made fitness. I think there was one reason I never pursued being an athlete was you were talking about the sit-up challenge, right? We had to do however many sit-ups you could do in 1 minute was the challenge. And for some reason that
got more of a workout than my belly did.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, for me, we're in the gym, right? And it's all the middle schoolers, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders are all in the gym. And the coach is sitting there telling us how to do the sit-ups and all that stuff. And he counts us down 3, 2, 1. We have 1 minute to go. And on the very first sit-up, the kid, everybody has someone holding your feet, right? And the very first sit-up, I rip a fart so loud that it echoes throughout the whole thing. Well, everybody stops.
But at the same time, my heart goes out to you.
Everybody, including the coach, just stops and just dies laughing. And I am so embarrassed. I feel so horrible. I do. And I'm in the middle of the gymnasium. The 6th graders, the 7th graders, and 8th graders, and the coach, and probably a few teachers just start laughing at me. So right off the bat, I'm like, this is never going to be. So I finished.
Nailed it.
Yeah, no, I did not have the confidence of an adult that could just laugh at that one. I was extremely embarrassed and ashamed. And I think I may have tried to get out of school for the next 2 days. My dad wouldn't let me. So that's a trauma you brought up in me again. So thank you. Now I get to
process that with my therapist this week. Right. Thank you.
My therapist, and I have something to talk about now. But you could tell you that, there's some trauma behind all that. So I get that part of it. And I remember it sort of got brought back up lately that they want to bring that back. And I kept thinking, oh God, there's going to be so many children that are going to be horrified and traumatized by this. But I get also the fear of gyms. And a lot of my clients tell me about that all the time. They're like, I don't want to go to a gym. And that's one thing I work with my clients is a lot. I'm not in a big box gym. I'm in a very small gym. I share with maybe 2 or 3 other trainers, but there's not always there, which is what I like. But to me, part of what I do is work with beginners. So for me, there's that idea of I'm scared of gyms, and I understand where you're coming from, but it's easy to say, it's hard to walk in and do. But I would say that most people in there don't really care that you're there. They don't. As a matter of fact, you were talking about the woman who is all made up. She's probably
paying attention to herself. Like she's not paying attention to you.
Right.
She's wondering who's looking at her.
Right. That's what I'm saying. If you want to know the truth, is all the eyes are on her, and that's what she wants. Right. Which is fine. I'm not going to, if that's her thing, that's perfectly fine. Most people who are going in sweats and a t-shirt and just doing the workout, nobody's paying attention to.
Yeah. And you blend in, friend. You blend in.
You do blend in. Yes. And on top of that, the person is, if you don't want to have a personal trainer or can't afford one or whatever reason, you just want to do this on your own, I can tell you that the gym rat, the big bulky guy that's over there grunting, will probably, if you went over and asked them something about exercise, my warning is not that they'd be creepy. My warning is that they'd spend the next hour telling you so much more information than you ever wanted to know because you've hit their hobby. That's their hobby.
But the thing is that nobody would go over and ask them because they would be so intimidated that the big buff whatever like gym rat person is like up there. Like people, just like people put food on pedestals, people put other people on pedestals. Mm-hmm. People put those big bulky folks on the pedestal, and they, to your point, yes, are they approachable? They may not look approachable. Like, right. Imagine The Rock isn't The Rock, right? He's not like famous, but like, he's in the gym and it's like, oh, how much you benching, right? What's your workout, right? But I think people would still be terrified of, that's the visual that I get of the type of person that you're talking to. But that person would be the best person to school you and would be like, okay, do this, don't do that. Oh, you're a beginner. They may not be a trainer, but like you said, you've hit their hobby, but they'd be so intimidated. They wouldn't talk to them. They'd be terrified.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, and they're one of those welcoming people in the gym. They love to see new people come in because more than likely that person who is big and bulky is probably started just the opposite.
Right.
They probably came into the gym at some time in the past feeling intimidated, overwhelmed, scared, didn't know what the hell they're doing. Maybe some aren't. Maybe there's those guys that are athletes that are always there. You can tell the difference. But, to me, it's like they're probably more welcoming than anybody else.
Have I told you my 2021 gym story?
I'd love to hear it.
So obviously COVID. So we took a break from the gym for a while. So 2021, it was summer. I decided I was going to go back to the gym, but I had a training package, and the trainer that I worked with was female, and she left to go to the fire academy. Like I guess it made sense. They were taking time off and she was pursuing a different career. So I came back. Her name was Jessica. So I was like, Jessica's not here anymore. I want to cancel my training package. So the trainer that I met, this is why it's so funny. The trainer that I met, his name was Scott. And I walked in and was like, I need to cancel this. And he's like, well, why? Jessica's not here anymore. And he was like, well, I understand that. Well, but just give it one workout. If you're still wanting to cancel, like, he was very nice. He wasn't pushy. He wasn't salesy. And I had never had a male trainer before. And I was uncomfortable at this point. For anybody who's followed my journey, this was after multiple miscarriages. I'm trying to get back, regain and stuff like that. So I was wanting to work out, but I did not like the fact that he is one of those big bulky guys. And I saw him and I judged him right away. So I'm like outing myself here. I judged him right away. And he was like, well, let's just do, okay, fine. Right. So I could have talked me into a workout, and then I never left. He likes to tell that story. And actually, Scott left the gym in 2024. So he left.
Before you.
Yeah. And then I left because now he comes to my house and trains me at my house.
Nice.
And my husband too now. So it was funny because he'll say, do you remember? I'm like, oh gosh, you're going to tell that story, aren't you? And he's like, I am.
Right. It's sort of
Yeah. But he also knew, and I probably looked at apprehensive because I did have some weights at home, but I was very insecure about coming back after not having those structured trainings and having this added weight on. So it's very insecure in myself. And I was like, I'm going to do this on my own. I don't need, and certainly not a guy, and da-da-da. So I had these preconceived judgments myself. But when I got to know him and how he was like, okay, well, we can modify it. Okay, well, we can do this. Oh, you're not there yet? Okay, let's do this. But my insecurities about my performance were what got in my way. And it was allowing myself to be vulnerable. And that really actually helped me to grow.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing story. I think that's a great story, because I think a lot of people have that perception of others, in this field. And it's
or
an
they'll be
unfortunate
judged, right?
Yeah.
The trainer will judge you. And so it's kind of like, it's easy to lock yourself down, but I was judging him too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's funny because you can't see me. I'm not the big bulky guy. I'm kind of the tall, skinny, lanky person.
You're the cyclist. Your
that would be more
type
like
is the cyclist, right?
So I've had people look at me, and you can tell right away if they've never seen me, and there's this quick flash of judgment in their face, and I see it all the time. It's like, well, it's just who I am. I can't do anything about that. It's just, whatever. But I think for me, what I've noticed is I try to keep that, having my big gas explosion in 8th grade or 6th, 7th grade has stuck with me. So I really try my hardest not to judge other people in that same vein, because it's just a horrible place to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, and you're right though. There's a lot of judgment, and sometimes you have to look at yourself and ask yourself, why am I terrified? Am I terrified? What's my biases? What are my judgments? Where am I going with this? And is it valid? Or am I just working out of fear? We all do it. We all, especially, I always say it's, the unknown is the most scary place to be, because you just have no clue what's going to happen. And of course and maybe I'm talking from my own anxiety, but your brain create
stories. like
Oh, yeah,
fictional, run off the rails stories.
right.
Yeah, for sure.
There's no horror movie that's scarier than the fantasy that you can pull your brain into about some unknown. It's like it's going to be the worst thing ever. No horror story can ever beat your own anxiety. But as soon as you go in and you face it, it typically crumbles immediately.
It does.
You're like, it's like this isn't reality all of a sudden. Yeah, and I
That
guess
was
that
easy. I'm like, yeah, it
yeah.
was.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of the idea of sort of the way is through the hard part. But I think that sort of like the journey is through the difficult part. But ultimately, it's never as difficult as you pull it out to be. But to get off of philosophy, which is amazing, into your question that I never answered, which is, what do you do with people that don't like to sweat?
Yeah.
Honestly, I had a client that told me that. She goes, I will work out with you, but if I sweat, I'm stopping and I'm going to walk out the door. And she was adamant she was not going to sweat. And I got to know her pretty well, and I would make fun of her. It's like, you're the only person I know that comes to a gym who does not sweat. And so I modified the workout. She stayed with me for years, but we modified the workout. It's like as soon as she started sweating, we stopped. And she would dab her brow, and she would stop, and then we'd start again. And I was like, this is fine. If this is what's going to happen with you, if this is the way you're going to work, then I will work with you to make this happen. And I'm like you, though. I sweat when someone says the word warm.
Right.
And I also did during my career, I've been a spin instructor. And this is gross, but people would call the first row the splash zone when Geof, because I'm doing like 40% of what my group is doing, and I'm still sweating profusely. And I actually love it. That to me is, I love that feeling.
I've just invested in chafing gel.
Right, exactly. Yeah, right. So that's the way you do that. But for the people that don't like to sweat, ultimately, the only answer I have is just go slow. You don't have to. There's times when it's going to happen, and you may have to push yourself through that discomfort, but you don't always have to.
What do you do? And I don't know if you've had clients who were struggling with mobility or moving from either a wheelchair or chair workouts, people who are maybe not bedridden, but, they either come in a wheelchair or they're struggling with mobility, or they may be getting PT. I don't know if you do I don't know if you call it telehealth or like video sessions or online sessions versus in person in your gym. And, for someone who's, let's say, just starting, or they've just had surgery a couple months ago, they're starting to get into strength training or struggling with mobility. What are the first steps that you recommend to them for building strength safely, but also sticking with it for them to help them get to a point where they're mobile?
I think this is a question that's going to get into the philosophy of why I do what I do. First off, yeah, I do both in-person and virtual training. As a matter of fact, about 50% of my clients are on Zoom. I have some all over the country. But so you can do it anywhere. But to me, I go back to the why you don't want to sweat is to go slow to start with.
Right.
But the deeper question is, and this is one thing that I've noticed with a lot of people that are coming, have lost a significant amount of weight or are losing a significant amount of weight after having it for a long period of time, is the fact that you forget or you never knew your body. I've heard many clients tell me this in their own way, is they avoid their body when they're obese. They knew they were obese. That's not the question. They just didn't want to feel it. They would rather externalize everything away from them. They didn't want to feel that. Their knees hurt, but that's just that whole thing to them. And to me, is as you start losing that weight, this is the opportunity to start feeling your body. Because another story, I had a client who was maybe a year out of surgery. She had lost maybe about right at 100 pounds. I think her goal was to lose 150. So she probably had 50 more to go. And we were doing some exercise, and there's one exercise which was the reverse lunge. If you've never seen it, you're standing, you put one leg back behind the other one. And I did this on purpose with her because her balance was a little wonky and she never liked the exercise. And I always asked her why. And she said, my knees hurt.
Yeah.
But we do other exercises and her knee never hurt. So I said, let's try it. She was holding onto a TRX when she did it. And she would just stand there frozen, like she couldn't move. I'd say, and she goes, every time I do this, my knees hurt and I'm really terrified to do it. And I was like, you have TRX in front of you that can hold you up. You have all the support of what you need. If it hurts, we'll stop. We don't have to do this. But I think you can do this. And she did it. And she did it again. And she did it again. And then she stopped and she was, my knees never hurt. I said, yes, it's because I believed she was playing from an old rule book that she had set up for herself, which was this movement hurt because she was 100 pounds heavier and literally her knees hurt. But she had not changed her rule book to say, I'm no longer 100 pounds where I was, and my knees don't hurt when I do that. And it was that discovery again, her eyes lit up. She's like, I'm a different person. I'm not that person. So that's part of it, is understanding your body, understanding who you are and like where you are in the moment. You're not that person you were a year ago. You are a different person. You can do different things. And so for me, that whole idea of getting you where you are is just knowing where you are and how to work through that.
So you shared that, and that I literally have almost the exact same story. So 2021, I get into the gym and I tell him I can't do lunges or what he maybe call single leg deadlifts, right? I can't do single leg stuff. I can't do a lunge or a kickback or whatever because I have arthritis in my knees. It's not just a story though, because I've been working on trying to do different things that take the pressure off my knee. I go to an orthopedic, I get different types of injections. I'm too young for knee replacement, yada, yada, yada. So I tell the trainer, let's not do single leg. It put pressure on the kneecap for me. I can't say, but I knew where exactly in my body where it would put pressure. And my right leg, I've had meniscus tears and flipped on itself. And that right knee, it's actually stronger than the left because I've had to do so much work on it, but it's also foobarred, much more foobarred than the left one. And so I was doing squats. So we were working on squats, elevator squats, regular squats, sumo squats, like all the different types of squats. And then it was probably about 2 years ago. Okay, well, we're going to try some single leg with the TRX. And as a matter of fact, yesterday we did some, and we hadn't done it in a really long time. And he pulled out this yoga mat, wrapped it up, and he said, I want your knee to go down to this. We haven't done these in a while. If you can't, or if it's uncomfortable, we'll stop, we'll modify. Like he gives you all these things. Mm-hmm. And I'm like going through, and he was like, what? And it was awesome. Now, and I told my orthopedic over a year ago, because I had told him I am not able to do these single leg exercises, but as a result of strengthening my knee and having specific knee exercises and strengthening, I have now gotten to a point like your client that I can do it. I'm not doing it free of the TRX yet. No hands, everybody. Look, no hands. I'm not. I think that gives us hope. And we need more stories like that. People need to hear more stories like that because they may not be ready, but you're right. It's an old script. And I think I have a couple clients who are struggling with mobility, and I am not a trainer. And yet I tell them, you've got to do some of these strengthening things in the chair, and that your old script, whether it's this disorder, that disorder, I've got this chronic condition, right? Because I could have used my arthritis to limit me. But I have said to myself, your client, because like that's an old script, that's an old tape. It's that old part of us, weight or no weight but how can I still strengthen the muscles, the knee, the joint, so that I can, regardless of the story, regardless of the medical condition, because I still have arthritis, but I'm not allowing it to limit me, right? And I know I'll have a flare up at times. And then I know the things that typically flare it up, but it would have been doing those if my knee wasn't conditioned, right? So I think that's the thing, is having more conditioning.
Yeah. And I think that's a big part of it. And I think it's focusing on the small stuff to get to the big stuff. And that's a big part of it. And I think people just starting out, the other aspect was be able to go slow, but you don't have to feel like you need to do 35, 40, 60 minutes of working out to start. There's a ton of research that shows that if you did 3 10-minute out sessions a day, it's just as effective as one 30-minute workout. So if you're limited in mobility, limited in time, limited in funds, whatever, you don't have to do a lot at once to get it done. And if you're in a chair or a wheelchair, there's a lot of exercises you can do for upper body. It doesn't have to be, it can be body weight stuff, and the movements can be simple, and it doesn't have to take that much time to do. That's what I tell a lot of my clients too. And a lot of the people that are just coming out of surgery. So if you're just, I just want to put this out there, if you're just coming out of surgery, if you're just in like first 3 months, you probably don't have the energy to do more than 30 minutes at a time anyway. You're still trying to figure out your body. You're still trying to figure out your food, your nutrition. So for people that are just coming out of surgery, it's better to start slow than just go fast anyway.
Yeah. And I'd always heard, I don't know if there's a hard and fast rule, because this will come up sometimes in my groups with people who have surgery and I wouldn't even call it cardio, but I would say that from what I've heard, the first 3 months, get up to 10,000 steps or like move in that way and start the strength training after, I don't even know, it might be after you're cleared by your surgeon, because there are stitches and it depends on the type of surgery, especially if somebody's had some kind of complication like a hernia repair or something. Like they're definitely not allowed to do some strength training until they've been cleared. So I've kind of stuck with that for safety reasons, is consult with your physician, consult with your surgeon, that disclaimer, like make sure your heart is healthy for physical activity, or talk to your doctor and get approved. And then, but I've always kind of held that 3 month after surgery as, yes, you're getting up, you're moving, you're walking, not 4 miles an hour pace or anything.
Right.
You're getting that movement in, and then the strength training comes after that. But yeah, curious, because also it may not be, when we're talking about wheelchair or immobile, it may not be from a specific physical condition. It may be because that individual's been immobile for a really long time and pushing through the discomfort. Or do you have like a list of recommended activities or like where they start with? So even if they they can use their lower limbs, but they're not able to like stand or walk, are there suggested recommended activities that could help them strengthen those muscles, kind of like a baby step plan to get them, like whether they're working with PT or not, to move towards mobility?
For me, it'd be like, I only see people like that after they've gone through physical therapy. So in terms of I'm not a physical therapist, so I couldn't do that part of it. But if you're cleared from physical therapy, I'd say, it's start slow, start with body weight. If you can do things, let's put it this way. I think a lot of it is mind-muscle connection. I'm going to take this in a direction, but it applies to people that are in wheelchairs or anything else. And the mind-muscle connection is this idea that you're connected your thoughts to the muscles that should be being used during an exercise. So in strength training, it's like doing a push-up is going to be your chest muscle and your triceps are the main two things. And the mind-muscle connection to me is you should be concentrating on contracting those chest muscles as you do that push-up, right? So so coming back, and how this relates back to what you were just saying, is you can do a lot of work with just focusing on contracting a muscle. So there's no resistance to it. If you're sitting right now and you're not in a car or whatever, if you just straighten your leg out and contract your quad, which is the top part of your muscle, and just hold that contraction, just hold it as hard as you can for a count of like 30 seconds or 20 seconds, you'll notice that it starts to get a little fatigued after a while. It's that isometric hold is just one way to do that. There's no pressure on it or anything like that. Those lines is for lower body, you can do that. You can do it upper body. You can just flex your biceps. And so there's a lot you can do that's not pressure oriented in that respect. And it brings me to the other aspect of my philosophy. I didn't really get into that as much as I'd like to, is this idea that strength training to me is, and you had it in your intro with me, but this is really where I've been going with it. Strength training to me is a form of meditation.
Yes. So,
and it comes back to that idea of, we were just talking about people understanding their bodies, what it's all about. Yeah. So if I always tell my clients that I go through a little spiel with the mind muscle and have them feel their muscles contract on certain movements and all that stuff. And then I say, whatever exercise I'm having you do, and you don't understand what muscle it is you should be using as a primary mover, ask me. So what muscle should I be concentrating on? Because what I want for you during that movement is to focus on the contraction of that prime mover. And when you're focused on that muscle or that group of muscles, you can't think of anything else. It's like meditation. If you're doing meditation right, the goal is not a blank mind, but to have a mind that can be in control of the thoughts. The thoughts aren't just all over the place. You've controlled the thoughts. And that's what I'm saying. You're focusing on like a chest press or a push-up. I'm focusing on my chest muscle contracting through that whole motion from beginning to end. And if you're doing that, you can't think of anything else. You're in the moment. You're doing the exercise.
You're not swinging weights. You're focused.
Exactly.
It's intentional.
It's intentional. And that focus is what's there. It's the idea of concentration in the moment. And it's a form of, to me, it's a form of meditation. It's a form of being in the moment, being in the now kind of thing. So for me, that is my philosophy, and it can work with wherever you are in your journey with exercise. If you're just beginning, it's a great way to understand how your body moves. It's like, okay, what muscles should I be doing for this exercise? Oh, is it this one? I'll concentrate on that. If you're far out, if you've been doing it for a while, it's a great way to feel your body and go. And people that are really good at exercise know when they have good form and know when they don't need a mirror, because they've spent the time understanding and having feedback from themselves and others to say, that's what a deadlift should look like. I see the deadlift and that looks exactly what it's like. What does it feel like to you? And that's what I always ask my clients is, what does that feel like? Because that's what I want you to be able to do, is a deadlift with no mirrors around and nobody around and know you did it right.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, yeah, but the goal for me is just to focus on your body, whether you feel it or not, because you're sitting there focusing on your body, which is where I want you. So sometimes it takes longer than you think. So it's the patience of it. But that's, to me, that's what it is. And that's, I think, if wherever you are in your journey with exercise, knowing your body, knowing the muscles, knowing how you move, and we all move weird too, right? And weird is normal with movement, right? Because there is no normal movement. Because I guess there's a physics normal, but no one moves like that. But knowing how you move helps you, right? So, and if you're not paying attention to that part of your movement, you're disregarding a big aspect of you, which is your body.
Yeah. So there is that connection piece with the muscle and that meditative practice. Do you have any clients that get stuck on the scale? What would you advise folks? I know what I would advise, but what do you advise for folks who get stuck on the scale and they're like, I've been doing this 6 months or 3 months and I'm not noticing a difference. And I know that when we're building muscle, the scale body composition is going to shift and our body composition doesn't show on the scales, right? How do you address that with folks who really need to divorce the scale, since we talked about 50 first dates of exercise or movement, right? So they need to divorce the scale. The scale is that horrible bully that,
we all everybody gets addicted to everybody loves the bad boy, but hates it at the same time.
Exactly.
Yeah. To me, through the years, I've learned different strategies around that. And I think ultimately the short answer is non-scale victories. And the longer answer is, how are you feeling overall? And so I have some clients that love the scale, that absolutely love it and hate it at the same time. And I'll give them my opinion of what I feel about it, but I'm never going to take it away from them, because I feel, that's more of a mindset therapy kind of thing than what I get into. But to me,
we'll talk after.
Yeah, exactly. I'll refer them to Kristen. But to me, it goes back to that non-scale victory. It's looking at your life in a broader sense of not just a number. You're not a number, right? And whether you build muscle, maintain muscle, lose fat, gain some fat, it's all around how do you perceive and feel your life to be different in a positive way. And that's That's more mindset than it is anything else, but it's the same kind of thing. It's the same thing as paying attention to your body when you work out. It's paying attention to your life as you're living it. Like you've been in the gym for 6 months, you've been working out and the scale hasn't moved. Maybe you've gained a little bit of muscle, maybe you haven't. And usually what I ask my clients is what's changed in your life for the better because of this? And if they've been paying attention, it's rare that they can't say anything. It's when you haven't been paying attention, they go, I don't know. And then I say, well, maybe it's time to pay attention because I've seen it. You know, as a trainer, I've seen it. You are on 5 pounds and now we're doing 25 pounds of this and you're finding that easy. Tells me right away that, yeah, you've changed. So for me, it's documenting it. It's paying it. It all comes back to paying attention. It all comes back to paying attention to who you are, both in your body and how you're living your life. And that's where journaling, everybody rolls their eyes around journaling. Well,
Not me. You won't see me rolling my eyes.
I know. I love it myself. But the thing is, it's a great way to just write down stuff. It doesn't have to be a good prose. It doesn't even have to be a sentence. It could be with exercise. It's like, I did this workout. These were the weights I used. This is how I felt. And 6 months later, if you go back and you look at that journal, you'll probably look at yourself and go, wow, I used to feel that was heavy and that's not anymore. My scale's the exact same number. Actually, it's gone up a little bit, but this journal tells me that I'm much stronger than I was. I see myself in a more positive light. So I don't see scales as a bad thing. I think we both agree on this. I think it's been given way, way too much importance in people's lives.
Power. Yeah.
And that comes back to diet culture. That comes back to all these other external prompts in our lives that we've given too much importance to. It made our own importance less because somebody else decided this is more important, that you weigh X number of pounds.
So I have 2 more questions for you because we did want to get into GLP-1s today, but we just work so well together and have such fabulous conversation that we're not. Would you come back another time and come hang with me and we'll do another episode on strength training and GLP-1s? Because I think that's really important for folks who have had weight loss surgery and or using a GLP-1 or who are just on a GLP-1 with regards to strength training. And then, because I don't think we'll get to it today. So
that's fine. Yeah, I would love to do that. Thank you. Okay. That would be fantastic.
And then I guess the second or the last question as we wrap up, because I want to be mindful of time, is if you could give 5 core pieces of advice, now I sound like a radio personality, to brand new bariatric patients. If you could give 5 core pieces of advice to brand new bariatric patients, what would they be?
5 core pieces of advice. I think the first one, just because my bias is towards movement and exercise, is to move consistently and move with purpose. This journey you can't do alone. You should have support, whether that's a friend,
find
a family. Find a dancing partner. Exactly. It could be a friend. It could be a therapist.
I'm like, number 1, dance. Number 2, find a partner to dance with.
There you go.
Ad-libbing here. Yeah.
I love it. Yes. First you find your dance, then you find your partner. So success doesn't come in a vacuum with this journey. If you don't have other people in your lives, you're probably going to be struggling a lot more to get where you want to be successfully. Yeah. So finding a friend, people that you can trust, whatever it is, it makes a huge difference. Don't limit your success. Don't limit what success means to you. So it's expanding your idea of the word success. What does it mean to you beyond a scale? Like non-scale victories are successful. How you...
PRs, personal records.
PRs are a success. The fact that you did a meal prep for the week was a success. And so expand your definition of what success looks like to you.
Yeah.
And understand that it'll change as you get through this, as it goes. Success at 3 months and success at a year and a half are not the same thing. On that same vein is a perfectionist mindset will break you. If you have a perfectionist mindset, all or nothing, binary, black and white, you will never, I'm just going to say it, you'll fail. And it's just a mean thing I hate saying it that way, but if you can't give yourself leeway and grace and all the things that happen, life will throw curveballs at you day and night. And if you can't see that and be graceful to yourself and you have to be perfect all the time, you'll fail. You just will. And that's just, I hate saying that, but I've seen.
It's an unrealistic standard. I think that
exactly
is And I see why you're putting it that way, because it's so fun. It's funny, but it's not. That perfectionists are so afraid of failure. But what I hear you saying is they're actually walking there because they're so rigid in their thinking, right? With regards to perfectionism, that what they're unintentionally doing is lining their path to failure because of their rigidity. And they really need to be more flexible in their thinking.
Exactly. Your perfectionism will get you to failure, where your flexibility will get you to success. And the bigger your success definition is, the many paths that you can take to that success.
Absolutely. Because there's no one, and that's the thing that I tell people all the time. There's no one right way. Like, my way is not the right way. And that's why it's only been recently that I've been sharing, like, I do this, I do that. I want people to figure out what their path is. But I've also found, and we can talk about this later, but because I don't want to rabbit hole this too much, is that often people are wanting to cling to, well, what's your method? Well, what's your method?
Right.
So because we've been fed by diet culture that let's do this diet or do this method or this blah, blah, blah. My method is you figure out what works for you. And that terrifies people because, once again, and it links exactly to what you were talking about, is they have to get to know themselves. And it's not, yes, it's mind, body, but they need to know what works for me. One of my favorite movies, and I have a lot of favorite movies, so I can't say it's top 10, and it's fall. And I gotta talk about it. Runaway Bride. Have you ever watched?
I have not seen that. No.
So I'm going to give you the synopsis. I'm going to ruin it for you, but it's a chick flick. I'm going to ruin it for you. Is she goes to marry like 4 or 5 different guys and she leaves them at the altar. Runaway Bride. That's what it's about. What you come to realize is that she is a chameleon and she becomes whoever they want her to be. And she's elated and all of this. And then she can't stand the pressure at the time that she goes to marry them. So then she leaves. So it's like, I think close to the end of the movie, one of the scenes is she's trying different types of eggs, because throughout the movie, you see this guy likes his eggs scrambled. This one has an omelet, this one, and she's eating her eggs according to how the guy that she's with. And I'm like, I know it has nothing to do with bariatrics, but I'm like, this is what people are constantly doing, is they're molding themselves to this plan or that plan. Then they struggle with, well, why can't I commit? If you're a nurse working a 12-hour shift, your quote unquote fitness routine is going to look different than a teacher.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Or a retired person.
Yeah. Or how do you? Yeah. So I think we have to take that, I'm constantly telling people, self-advocate. What do you need? What works for you? Because swim may not work for people. A 5 a.m. yoga class may work for one person, but somebody else is like, I'm not getting up at 5 a.m. Right. So we've got to figure that out. And if you've never done that before, because you've been using somebody else's playbook your entire life, well, guess what?
It works great for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, and then the last one is sort of along that same idea, is for someone who's brand new to bariatrics or just going through it, even with GLP-1s, if you're just trying to lose a lot of weight, right? It doesn't really if you're doing it right, it's a lifelong journey, right? There is no end to this. And
bravo. I'm clapping because I'm like, yeah, no end.
There is no end. And it's one of those things where as you lose weight, your life changes. People see you differently. You see yourself differently, especially if you start focusing on yourself. What you can do becomes different. Your life change. I have an idea, and I talk about. I'll talk about real quickly because we're getting to the end of this thing. Is you have 2 start lines with bariatric surgery. You have the start line that starts you at recovery, and you go in the recovery room, and that's the start of figuring out how to actually use the tool correctly. And then somewhere way down the line, you have this other start line where you're just living a new life, where you just, all of a sudden someone says, let's do a 12-mile hike. And your first reaction is, oh shit, I can't do that. Your first reaction is, yes, let's do that. You've hit that new starting line. You've become a different person. So there's 2 starting lines, and this is a journey between starting lines virtually, right? Especially at the beginning in that first month, year and a half, 2 years.
Oh yeah.
And so for me, so which comes back to, if you have a perfectionist mindset, then you're trying to decide there's an end to this, because there's a beginning. There is no end to this. The end happens when you're in the ground, right? So you can't have that. And
which is morbid, but at the same time, I tell people, like, either you're planning for your wellness, right? Or I mean, I have said this before and it's been harsh, but I'm like, either you're planning to get healthy or you're planning for a funeral. Like, which is it? And
right.
I've had people like stare at me because it's on Zoom calls. And I'm like, I'm not saying this to be mean. I'm saying this with love, because that's the trajectory you're taking. And we have to keep it
right.
We have to keep it real. Like, what are you planning for?
It's what, with that phrase from Shawshank Redemption, it's well written and well said by Morgan Freeman, but ultimately it's the same thing. You can plan to start dying or you can plan to start living. It's up to you to decide where you want to go with that. But yeah, so that's it. Those are the 5. Move consistently, have support, don't limit your success. Perfection mindset will break you. And this is a lifelong journey.
There's no end. Yeah.
There is no end.
Because I'm at 12 years myself and I'm still improving.
Mm-hmm.
I have had a monkey wrench, and I call it that, with the perimenopause. Like, I had joked, nobody knows this, but I was like, when I turn 50, I'm going to be like tight and toned. I've never told myself this. And then perimenopause came and went.
Right. Everything changed. Right.
Everything changed. And I was like, this sucks. And so I'm still training, but I've had to let go. I still have goals. I still still want to, get more tight and toned and that kind of thing. But it was almost like there was a detour, right? That road was closed. Yes. I had to take a long way around the city. Not what I had planned, but that's how life is. How life is. And it's like, I'm going to do, it's like, there's that saying, if you want to hear God laugh, tell him your plans.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
I'm going to do this. Yeah.
Yeah, sure you are.
You. So flexible, but I love your energy. I love how you do bring the humor in it. You bring my humor out. I mean, I love that. I'm grateful.
I appreciate you, Kristen. Thank you very much.
We're grateful for you doing this episode, and we will connect back to do another episode on GLP-1. So for people who want to connect with you, maybe seek you out for training, where can people find you? What social media platforms are you on? I will put these in the show notes, but website, all your info. Give us your info, Geof.
Well, my website is coachingforbariatricsuccess.com. It's a very easy, not wordy, and too long of a URL. To me being sarcastic. I have a Substack, which is the same thing, Coaching for Bariatric Success. I do have an Instagram with the same name, but I rarely on social media anymore.
Fantastic.
So I'm on Substack a lot more.
Check out his Substack. Yeah.
Yes. So Substack is where I mostly do most of my postings. So you can find me, like my website, if you're interested, there's a way to set up a conversation with me. I do a little 20-minute free, just where are you kind of conversation. So that's the best way to get in touch with me. And like I said, I do work in person, and I do have, like I said, about half of my clients are through Zoom, and just work with them either at their house or in a gym, however they need to do it. So, and
then I thought you also had a podcast. So can you share that?
I do have a podcast. It's on hold right now because the other host is sick, but it's called The Weight of Change. And awesome. It's with two other men who, they've both gone through bariatric surgery. One's 2 years out, the other's 18 years out. And it's focused on sort of the men's focus in bariatrics and how men sort of deal with this journey a little bit. So that's what that one is. I have another one called Lean In, which is a little bit more just basic health stuff with a Dr. Kendall Stone here in Denver. And then an old one of mine, I have a lot of podcasts, an old one of mine called This May Help You. So This May Help You that I did back with one of my friends who's as a PhD in nutrition. So I've got a few out there that are all out to listen to. You can get more of my stuff and the book, Now What?
That's on Amazon.
That's on Amazon, yes.
And paperback, right?
Kindle and paperback, yep. Yeah, that's all my stuff.
I love this. Okay, I will share these in the show notes. Thank you so much for
Thank you,
being so
Kristen.
gracious with your time. I know we've gone way over, but I'm so grateful because I think this is such a meaty episode. This is such a meaty episode, and I can't wait to have you back. So
I can't wait to come back. Thank you very much for the invitation, Kristen. I had a great time.
You're very welcome. All right. Thanks everybody for listening. Make sure you check out the show notes and check out all of Geof's information and follow him on social media, Substack. Check out his website, Coaching for Bariatric Success. And I will see you again in the next episode, sending you all so much love and see you next time. Bye.